Good evening and welcome to another edition of Dad's Divorce Live. My name is Angeline Zimmerman. I am an associate attorney with Cordell & Cordell PC and I work mainly in St. Charles, Missouri. Tonight we are joined by Mr. Monty Cole, and he is an attorney in California. Monty has a story that a lot of you will probably identify with, in that he had a bad experience with the court system when he was going through a divorce. He then went and got his law license and went on to challenge the state of California, and he's here to answer our questions about how more of you can do that and tell us a little more about his story. So welcome, Monty. Thank you for being with us this evening.
Well, thank you, Angeline. It's great to be here.
Can you start by telling us a little bit about your divorce proceeding and what happened with that?
Right. In '04, I had to file for divorce, and as it happened, I got into court. What happened is I continually lost. I had no hope. I lost my custody of my one boy, and I tried to keep my house, and that didn't work out. I ended up losing everything, and I started looking at it, and I realized this is just completely biased against me, and I didn't do anything.
Now, were you represented in that proceeding?
Yes, I did. I hired a number of lawyers, and I was represented.
Okay.
It was too hard to represent myself, you know. It really is crazy. You'd think, oh, well, with a law degree, you can just go in there and rip it up, but it's really not the case. So you got to have representation.
True. I think you need that unbiased opinion a lot of times because it's hard to look at your own life objectively.
Oh, and it's hard to think when your house is being ripped apart. It just doesn't work.
Right, right. Now, when you said you lost custody, what sort of custody plan did they give you?
Well, they call it 50-50, but the mom gets physical custody. So, and then there's a certain times when I can visit, you know, my son. I get some weekends, and I get a day or two during the week. But during the summers, I have to beg, and just the whole deal of missing his whole life is a lot to me.
So, does your parenting plan, it doesn't give you any sort of time in the summer?
It hasn't been modified yet, and every time I go to modify, I get kicked out. So I'm at this point, I'm just at the begging and bribing stage to see my son extra time during the summers. But that's just how it turned out, you know.
Right. Which I don't know much about California law, but in Missouri we have to have a substantial and continuing change of circumstances, as well as we use the best interest of the child standard when we modify. Is it a similar sort of thing in California?
Yes, certainly that's their claim is the best interest of the child, and it's not easy to modify things. They like to just keep it as it finally shakes out the first time. But I definitely came away with the sense that it was biased against fathers, and then started reading. I started looking at your site and other sites and started looking at the percentages of times that fathers actually get physical custody of their kids, and it's something like 10%, and the mothers get physical custody something like 90%. So I thought that obviously is an imbalance, and I started thinking about it in a lawyer-like way, and started looking at constitutional law, 14th Amendment, equal protection, where people are treated equally. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how I started with the lawsuit idea.
Now, where did you get your statistics?
Some were from Stephen Baskerville.
Mm-hmm.
He is, you may have heard of him, he's big in the field of dads'
Sure.
rights. And some were from your site, the Dad's Divorce site. And so I took those statistics and went into the law library and actually just started putting a case together against the county of Ventura, against my judges, ultimately against the state of California for allowing gender discrimination to be a major part of family law courts.
Now, where did you file? You actually did go ahead and proceed with filing suit, correct?
Yes, I did file in the 4th District Court which is down in Riverside, and it was accepted, and the County of Ventura had to hire about 8 lawyers down in Ventura, down in Riverside, federal lawyers, to put together like a 50-page brief against me in that court, yes.
Okay, and just to give our listeners some clarification, you're talking about filing in a federal court, whereas state courts are generally where we're at when we're talking about divorce and modification and all that stuff. Is that correct?
Right. I went to federal because I was claiming, or still am claiming, a constitutional violation, which is the one of the 2 ways, of course, I could get into federal court. I could have gone to state court, but they're not very nice. They yell at you, and the laws are not very forgiving. But the federal court is very forgiving to people who file their own cases. Okay. And so that's why I go to federal court on this kind of thing.
Okay, so you did, even though you weren't represented, or you were, represented for the actual divorce, you filed this action as representing yourself.
Right. I go down to the law library. There's manuals, as you know, of course, on how to file any kind of case you want. And I'm looking at cases. We're talking, U.S. Code 42, Section 1983, and that's the code section that contains the law on constitutional violations, and then you look in the manuals and you find out how to file step by step. You just almost fill in the blanks, pay the fee, and at least you can get started and get in and get the attention of your court anyhow.
Correct. Yeah, and what did you encounter any obstacles in doing that? What sort of things did you encounter after you filed the suit?
Well, the main obstacle was the 8 lawyers that the state hired to defend itself. I asked the district court to dig into the files of Ventura County Family Court and see how many dads actually get custody compared to how many moms. That is their Achilles heel, because once it's shown that it's 90% moms, 10% dads, there's a problem. The state is violating the Constitution. But to get there is not so easy because, of course, the states have a lot of regulations that keep people from getting the federal government from trying to sue the state government. Mm-hmm. But I did knock on their door pretty hard and caused this county to probably spend $40,000 defending itself, and it cost me $250. And I have a website, which I was going to tell you about, that has my case and everything on it so people can download it and look at it. And
yeah, please share the website with us. If you could.
Right, it's calclient.com, and that's actually a business site that I created. But I will have a blog on there where they can go and download the cases and look at what I did and at least get an idea of how to start.
Okay, so they can, if they visit your website, which is www.calclient.com, calclient.com, then they can get some idea of what you did and how they can sort of get started.
Correct, yes,
okay.
And there is, the information is in law libraries. It may not be easy for lay people to do, but if they read some of the cases too, the one that I used was Hogan versus Mississippi, which is a U.S. Supreme Court case, and it was written by O'Connor, who recently retired. But that case in particular was about gender discrimination. And in that case, Mississippi Nursing College excluded a male nurse. They said, well, we don't want you in our college because this is a female college and you're a male. Mm-hmm. And it went all the way to the Supreme Court. And what O'Connor said was states can't do that. They cannot discriminate on the basis of gender. And she said a lot of other things that were very pithy and interesting and I thought useful for the divorce